Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do it. And also hit the notification bell so that you will be updated. Today's video is the discussion on the research problem. The problem is the heart of any research study. Why is that? Because without a focused research problem, there is no research to speak of. And also because asking questions is the usual starting point for research, and this question is but a problem that need to be solved or answered. Identifying the problem to be studied is oftentimes the difficulty encountered by both undergraduate and graduate students. In order to identify research problems, a researcher needs to know where they or the problems can be sourced. So in this video, we are going to explore the sources and nature of research problems, their characteristics, how they are stated, how they are justified, and how the title of the study should be written, since the title should state or express the problem or the main problem of the research study. One of the sources of research problems is personal interest and observations. Our own interests and observations are important because they can point to directions for research and in sustaining the study. Most often, students have a difficulty to get an idea for a research topic or problem because they do not realize that the springboard for research is all around us. All we have to do is to observe and be curious. For instance, what have you observed that is of your interest around you during this time of pandemic? So that is the number one source of our research problem, our personal interest and observations. Another possible source of a question for research is the pressing problem needing a solution. Whether in school, workstation, or the community, we are confronted with problems requiring immediate solution or attention. These difficulties that have to be immediately addressed are potential problems for research. For instance, traffic congestion, drug addiction, criminality in the country's metropolitan areas, and spread of COVID-19 virus are good topics for research. Other investigators' theories and research can also be sources of research problems. One of the most interesting things about research is that it raises more questions than it answers. These new questions can also serve as a starting point for further research. Literature in one's field of specialization is another source of a research problem. Books and research journals in your area of expertise can be a potential source of research topic. These sources not only teach readers about a particular discipline or profession, but also suggest topics for further study and exploration. Examples for the BISAWA students. So your field of specialization is on the office administration and business. So you can refer to the books and research journals on office administration and business for research topics and problems. Completed theses and dissertations are also good sources of research problems. These research studies normally suggest topics that future researchers can work on, particularly the recommendation section of the research report. So instead of just copying the title of the completed thesis or dissertation, focus on understanding the recommendations for a suggestion or a clue of a research problem or topic. Suggestions from colleagues and professors can also provide researchers with problems for in-depth study. Your friends and peers who have undertaken research in a particular discipline can suggest problematic areas needing immediate attention, which can be a possible topic for study. Even your professors in your major subjects can recommend topics for further investigation. So, these are the sources of research problems. Number one, personal interest and observations. Number two, pressing problem needing a solution. Number three, other investigators' theories and research. Number four, literature in one's field of specialization. Number five, completed theses and dissertations. And number six, suggestions from colleagues or peers and friends and professors. So just remember that research was born out of man's problems, and man's major problem demands research. After knowing the possible sources of research problems or topics, it is important to know the criteria or factors that should be considered in selecting a problem for research. What are these factors? These factors are: number one, novel; number two, relevant; number three, interesting; number four, feasible; number five, researchable; number six, ethical. So let's elaborate briefly these factors. Number one is novel or novelty. When considering a research topic, you have to focus on one which has not been investigated before. If the problem or topic was already studied, you need to inject originality by coming up with another research design, using a different data gathering tool or a different scheme for analyzing research data. Number two, relevant. The results of the study on a given problem should be of practical value to you and the significant others in the field. This means that once the study has been completed, its findings, conclusions, and recommendations can be used in improving practices on solving identified difficulties. Number three, interesting. As the researcher, you need to consider your interest in the choice of a research problem or topic. Interest counts a lot in the conduct of a research study. If you are not interested on the topic, it will be difficult for you to put your heart and soul in it. Number four, feasible. This means that the problem you are going to work on can be completed without undue or unreasonable amount of time, money, or effort. Research feasibility also means that you have the necessary competence or expertise to conduct the study on this chosen problem. Number five, researchable. This means that data can be collected to answer the problem that you posed. A researcher, for instance, who wants to prove the existence of God will definitely find it difficult to gather quantifiable data to answer the said problem. So number six, ethical. A research problem is said to be ethical when it does not involve physical or psychological harm or damage to human beings or organizations. In other words, A study on a particular topic should not put people or institutions in a bad position or in a bad light. For instance, the topic on teenage pregnancy is most likely be disapproved by school administration because it will put the subjects or the respondents in a bad light or in a bad position. A research problem is usually posed or formulated as a question. The question from the question form is often preferred due to its simplicity and directness. Moreover, this format orients the researcher to the immediate task of developing a design to answer the research question. Research question, however, may be descriptive, relationship, or difference. These are the types of research problems. A descriptive research problem asks what is and suggests a survey research design. Some examples of descriptive research questions are: number one, what is the prevalent organizational culture of TMC as assessed by the officers, department heads, faculty members, students, and non-teaching employees? Number two, what is the level of emotional readiness of BISAWA students of two local colleges in the 2nd District of Bohol as assessed by the students themselves and their BISAWA instructors? Number three, what are the dominant leadership styles of the local barangay executives in Trinidad, Bohol, as perceived by themselves and their constituents? Number four, what is the level of commitment of the full-time and part-time instructors of TMC to their job and organization? Number five, what is the reading comprehension level of BISAWA and BSIT students of TMC? Those are the examples of descriptive research questions. On the other hand, a relationship research question asks what is the relationship between two or more variables or factors under study and implies a correlational design. Examples of these are: number one, thus emotional readiness of education students relate significantly with the performance in LET or licensure examination for teachers. Number two, is the self-concept of the BISAWA students of TMC related to their performance in their major core subjects? Number three, is there a significant association between performance in the LET and their grade point average in general and professional education courses? Number four, is there a significant relationship between job performance of BISAWA OJT or on-job trainees and their level of achievement in the various major core subjects? Number five, how significant is the relationship between job stressors and coping strategies of the full-time instructors of TMC? So these are the examples of relationship research questions. A difference research question typically asked: is there a difference between or among the respondents in relation to a characteristic or factor under study? This type of question is often used when a research is after or interested in comparing two or more observations. Examples: how do male and female education graduates compare in their performance in the LET? Number two, how do the full-time instructors of TMC compare in their work values when they are categorized according to the following variables: age, gender, civil status, monthly income, and educational attainment. Number 3, how significant is the difference in the leadership styles of municipal officials when they are grouped according to their philosophy of leadership? Number 4, how do education graduates from private and state colleges in Bohol compare in their performance in LET? Number 5, how do the barangay executives of Trinidad compare in their levels of job and organizational commitment? So these are the examples of difference research questions. After selecting the research problem, it has to be sufficiently stated. How? There are two ways of stating research problems, namely declarative and question. In most colleges and universities in the Philippines, the declarative form is used when stating the main problem of the study. On the other hand, the question form is used when stating the subproblems or specific problems of the proposed research. Example, title of the study, the influence of managerial styles on faculty behavior. Main problem, this study probed or investigated the influence of managerial styles of the department heads on the behavior of faculty members in TMC during academic year 2020 to 2021. Subproblems. Specifically, the following problems were answered systematically in this research. Number 1. What is the profile of the respondents in terms of 1.1 age, 1.2 sex, 1.3 civil status, 1.4 length of service, 1.5 tenure, 1.6 academic unit assignment, 1.7 educational attainment. Number 2, what is the dominant management style of the department heads as perceived by themselves and their faculty members? Number 3, do the two groups of respondents differ in their perception of the dominant management style of the department heads? Number 4, what is the behavior pattern of the respondent faculty members relative to the following factors? 4.1, professional satisfaction. 4.2, commitment to the job and organization. And 4.3, participation in decision making. Number 5, how do the faculty members compare in their behavior pattern with regard to the aforementioned factors when they were classified according to their personal variables profile? Number 6, how are the perceived management styles of the department heads related to the behavior pattern of their faculty members? So those are the statements of the sub-problems. Okay, just take note. To be able to state the main problem in your proposed study, be clear as to what you really want to accomplish. Certainty with what you want to find out will definitely enable you to state the main problem easily and correctly. State your research problem in a sentence showing what you want to describe, explain, or predict. Once you have stated your main problem, try to answer the following questions. Number 1, is the problem statement clear? Number 2, number 1, is the problem statement clear? Being able to identify exactly what is to be investigated from the problem statement is an indication that it is clear. Number 2, does it provide adequate or enough focus and direction for research? Knowledge of what is to be done after stating the main problem means that it had guided you on what to do and what to emphasize in research. Number 3, does it identify the key factors or variables of the study? If the key factors cannot be identified from your statement of the research problem, then it is wrongly stated. As most problems are too large or complex to be solved, they have to be subdivided. Every problem can be broken down into smaller units. These subparts are often called subproblems. According to Liddy, in the year 2003, it is by viewing the main problem through the subproblems that the researcher gets a better view of what the entire research study all about. Since we have to always think of the research problem in terms of its component parts, there is a need for us to be aware of the characteristics of subproblems. So what are the characteristics of subproblems? Number 1, each subproblem should be a completely researchable unit. A subproblem should be researched as a separate subproject or sub-study within the larger research goal. It is stated in the form of a question. Number 2, interpretation of data must be apparent with each subproblem. The fact that data will be interpreted must be clearly evident from the statement of subproblems. Number 3, the subproblems must add up to the totality of the problems. This simply means that the subproblems formulated will aid the researcher in covering all the significant areas of the main problem. So, those are the characteristics of subproblems. Now, having defined clearly the problem of the study, the researcher's next task is to justify his choice of it over other probable ones. To justify your study on a problem, try to answer the following questions. Number 1, does the problem require immediate solution? Number 2, is it widespread? Number 3, does it affect a number of people? If yes, in what way? Number 4, who shall benefit from the study of the problem? Number 5, what benefits can be derived from the study on the problems? Number 6, who else are interested in studying the problem? Number 7, what contribution to human knowledge can it bring about? These are the questions to be answered in order to justify the research problem. And after identifying your research problem, you need to give it a title. The label for the problem is your research title. There are certain functions served by the research title. Number 1, it shows what the study is all about. Number 2, it serves as a frame of reference for the entire study. Number 3, it enables the researcher to claim ownership of the study. Number 4, it can help other researchers refer to the work for possible theories related to their proposed studies. As the title is necessary for a study on a research problem, there are some attributes or characteristics it must possess. As pointed out by Sevilla in the year 1993 and Adamza in 1995, a good title is clear and specific as the content of the study are clearly shown in it. Number 2, it also shows relationships among the characteristics or factors being studied. Hence, a good title implies whether the research will focus on difference, effects, or association between and among variables to be investigated. Finally, a good title is brief but concise. By brevity, it means that it is composed of not more than 15 substantial or substantive words, excluding or not including function words such as articles, conjunctions, and prepositions. Now, the research problem establishes the goal of the research study. The subproblems, however, suggest ways for approaching the goal in a more manageable way. Research is based upon a clear understanding of every detail in the process. Hence, a researcher has to eliminate any possibility of misunderstanding in certain matters relating to his study on a particular research problem. This can be done by defining key terms in the problem, identifying the variables of the study, delimiting research, stating assumptions, and formulating hypotheses. Why do you need to define the key terms or concepts in the statement of the problem? In order to avoid confusion or ambiguity. For example, this is the statement of a research problem. The research attempts to probe or investigate on the relationship between the perceived management styles of department heads and faculty behavior in TMC during the academic year 2021 to 2022. What are the key terms that should be defined in the sample statement of the problem? To ensure clarity and focus, the following terms have to be defined: management styles, department heads, and faculty behavior. How then should these terms to be defined? Researchers usually define key terms either conceptually or operationally. Conceptual definition is the definition of a term as given by authorities or experts in a particular discipline. On the other, definition of a term is based on concepts or hypothetical ones which are usually taken from the dictionary. On the other hand, operational definition is the researcher's own definition of a term based on how it will be used in his study. This kind of definition requires a researcher to specify actions or operations necessary to identify and measure the terms. For instance, let's define the key terms in the previously mentioned research problem. Management style refers to the manager or executive's distinctive mode of managing an organization in terms of his performance of the managerial functions of planning, organizing, staffing, directing, controlling, and budgeting, according to Stoner in the year 2004. In this study, okay, so before I continue, so that definition is the conceptual definition of management styles. Now, for the operational definition of management style, in this study, the term shall be taken to mean as the college dean or department head's mode of managing the college or academic center under his charge in the following key result areas in educational management: student development, faculty and staff development, curriculum and instruction, financial resources, and physical facilities development, research, and community linkages and outreach. So again, the first definition is conceptual, while the second is operational. So why define key terms in the problem? Fishers, cited by Sevilla in the year 1993, say that the definition of the key terms establishes the rules and procedures the researcher will use to measure the variables of the study. Aside from the fact that it provides an ambiguous meaning to terms that otherwise can be interpreted in the different ways. So what are the variables of the study? To ensure as to what variables are to be examined or investigated, a variable is a property or characteristic that takes on different values. It is a symbol to which number or values can be attached or assigned. The most commonly used classification of variables includes independent, dependent, intervening, and moderating or moderator variables. Independent variable is the cause supposed to be responsible for bringing about changes in the dependent variable. So the dependent variable is the effect. The intervening variable is a variable whose existence is inferred but that cannot be manipulated or controlled. Moderating or moderator variable, a variable that may or may not be controlled but has an effect on the research situation. Let us illustrate these types of variables by recalling the research problem earlier mentioned on the relationship of perceived management styles of the department heads and faculty member and faculty behavior. In the said study, perceived management style is the independent variable, as it will be used to explain possible differences in the behavior patterns of respondents, faculty members. On the other hand, faculty behavior is the dependent variable, since it is the effect that will be determined as consequences of the department head's employment of a particular management style. What factors other than management style can affect the behavior patterns and the work values among others? Affect the behavior patterns of the faculty. These may include commitment to the job or the organization, level of professionalism, and the work values, among others. So these are examples of intervening variables. As regards possible moderator variables, the following can be considered: age, gender or sex, civil status, length of service with the college, educational attainment, college assignment, teaching performance rating. Why are these moderator variables? They are moderator variables as variances in faculty members' behavior patterns, as well as their dean's management styles, can possibly be accounted for by their differences in aforementioned personal and professional attributes. According to Wiersma in the year 1991, when moderator variable is controlled, it becomes an intervening factor. On the contrary, when the researcher is unable or not able to manipulate or measure the potential moderator variable, then it automatically is an intervening variable. So that is all about identifying the variables of the study as one way of making the research problem manageable. Another way of making a study on a problem more focused is by delimiting research. By delimiting research is simply giving full disclosure of what the researcher intends to do or does not intend to do. When a researcher is able to set the scope and the limitation of his study, he can make his research more manageable. At the same time, this can direct him to the choice of research method to employ. How can a researcher delimit his research on an identified problem? A researcher can set the scope and the limitation of his study by focusing on the following. Number 1, purpose of the study. Number 2, time coverage of if the of the investigation. Number 3, geographical coverage of the inquiry. Number 4, variables to be studied. Number 5, specific indicators of variables. Number 6, type and size of the respondents of the study. And number 7, data collection tools to be used in data gathering. Here is an example of the limitation of the study. This study attempts to establish the significance of relationship between the personality preferences and employees' job satisfaction in selected business processing, outsourcing, or BPO companies in Metro Cebu during the second quarter of 2008. Employees' personality preferences shall be determined based on Myers-Briggs type indicator based on Carl Jung's 4 psychological types. Personality preferences of the respondents, however, shall be described in terms of the following polar scales: introvert, extrovert, introvert versus extrovert, sensor versus intuitor, thinker versus feeler, and judger versus perceiver. Levels of job satisfaction among the respondents shall be reckoned in terms of the following variables: satisfaction with company policy and administration, satisfaction with growth, advancement, and job recognition, satisfaction with nature of work, satisfaction with interpersonal relations, and satisfaction with salary and fringe benefits. Nonetheless, terms of the following categories. Nonetheless, levels of job satisfaction in terms of the aforementioned factors shall be described in terms of the following categories: very satisfied, satisfied, somewhat satisfied, dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied. Inasmuch as this study shall be undertaken in Metro Cebu, generalizations that can be derived from findings of this research shall be applicable only to those presently employed by the subject BPOs in the aforementioned research locale or place. Another way of making the research problem manageable is stating assumptions in research. The researcher needs to state his assumptions to enhance the understanding of the problem to be studied. An assumption in research is a statement the researcher will presume to be true, but will no longer be proven. Nonetheless, it has to be based on the research problem. In a study on the interpersonal values of nursing interns, the researcher came up with the following basic assumptions. Number 1, that nursing interns have their own concept of what is good and desirable for themselves. Number 2, that an individual's interpersonal values can be identified and measured with the use of an appropriate inventory. Number 3, that there are factors that affect an individual's profession and enactment of a particular interpersonal value. And number 4, that Gordon's survey of interpersonal values, or SIV, is culture-free and can be used in determining the interpersonal values professed and enacted by Filipino college students. Still another important consideration in making one's research manageable is the formulation of the hypothesis of the study. What is a hypothesis in research? A hypothesis is a predictive statement that represents the researcher's tentative answer to his statement of the research problem. Aside from ensuring clarity, the hypothesis serves the following functions in research. Number 1, it provides focus to the study. Number 2, it tells the researcher what data to gather. Number 3, it enhances objectivity in the study. Number 4, it enables the researcher to contribute to the formulation of a theory and bridge the gaps in this body of knowledge. When constructing a hypothesis, you must remember that the hypothesis should, number one, be simple and specific. Number two, be stated in an empirically testable form. Number three, be related to the existing body of knowledge. Number four, should indicate the specific nature of connection between or among variables. As already emphasized, the hypothesis is a specific, testable prediction. This prediction can be stated either in null or alternative form. A null hypothesis, or H sub 0, is a statement indicating the non-existence of difference, relationship, or association between two or more variables or factors. It is always stated in a negative form. Between these two, the null hypothesis is often used in many researches in the academe, since no statistical tests have been developed in testing the alternative hypothesis. Also, in practice, the null hypothesis is commonly used because it is easy to reject and accept it. For instance, if the result is significant, reject the null hypothesis. If insignificant or not significant, accept it. On the other hand, an alternative hypothesis, or H sub 1, states the nature of the connection between or among the variables that researcher expects. It is an affirmation of the existence of an observed phenomenon. It is always stated in a positive form. Example, statement of the problem. How do BSOA students compare with BSIT students in their level of assertiveness? Null hypothesis. BSOA students and BSIT students do not differ significantly in their level of assertiveness. Or, there is no significant difference in the level of assertiveness of BSOA students and BSIT students. Alternative hypothesis. BSOA students and BSIT students differed significantly in their level of assertiveness. Or, there is a significant difference in the level of assertiveness of BSOA students and BSIT students. Another example problem. How significant is the association between the level of emotional readiness of the education students of TMC and their performance in LET? Null hypothesis. The level of emotional readiness of the education graduates of TMC is not significantly associated with their performance in LET. Or, there is no significant association between the level of emotional readiness of the education graduates and their performance in LET. Alternative hypothesis. The level of emotional readiness of the education graduates of TMC is significantly associated with their performance in LET. Or, there is a significant association between the level of emotional readiness of the education graduates of TMC with their performance in LET. A hypothesis can also be directional or non-directional. A directional hypothesis is one indicating the specific direction, like higher, lower, greater, lesser, more or less. A researcher expects to emerge in a relationship or difference. Example, girls will obtain higher mental ability scores than boys. A non-directional hypothesis is one that does not make specific prediction about the outcome of a study. Example, there will be difference in the levels of self-concept of grade 10 students when they are grouped according to their family's socio-economic status. As a conclusion, since hypothesis testing is what research is all about, a careful and precise statement of research hypothesis is vital for a research study to be worthwhile. Moving on, one of the preliminary tasks that a researcher has to undertake prior to his formulation of the research problem is the development of the theoretical framework of his study. On the basis of his theoretical framework, he then has to develop his conceptual framework or research paradigm. What is the theoretical framework of a research study? It is the structure that can hold or support the theory of a research work, according to Leveriza in the year 1997. This framework presents the theory which explains why the problem under study exists. Thus, the theoretical framework is but a theory that serves as a basis for conducting the study. Why should a researcher formulate his theoretical framework? There are three reasons for this. Number one, it helps the researcher see clearly the variables of the study. Number two, it provides the researcher a general framework for data collection and analysis. Number three, it is essential in preparing a research proposal using descriptive and experimental research methods. Let's have an example of a theoretical framework, and let me show you the paradigm or diagram of it. In a study on the personal values and job performance of the non-teaching personnel in one higher education institution in the NCR or National Capital Region, Bermejo in the year 1998 presented his theoretical framework in this manner. The study was premised on the theory that values affect an individual's performance on the job. Values, according to Bernard and Heisler in the year 1993, are ideas, beliefs, and thoughts we hold about ourselves, other people, and the world. Such conceptions determine how we think, feel, and act. Furthermore, these attitudes and ideas people hold can determine strongly their direction, adjustment, and satisfaction. They are variables that can determine the level of individual's performance of his work. According to ANDRIE in the year 1991, values help in behavior modification, such as improving job performance. He further stated that each worker brings to his job certain likes and dislikes, as well as personality traits, which make up his value set. When this value set conflicts with those on the job, then the job suffers. This conflict can result in poor work attitude, absenteeism, tardiness, low productivity, and general discontentment for the worker, as well as those around him. Relative to values and attitudes, a number of factors affect a person's performance of his job. Cooper in the year 1991 and De Souza in 1990 mention power, friendship, and stress as some of them. Human connectedness, relationship can also make up a difference. Human connectedness, a positive and supportive social network, also helps to make an employee work more productively. Personal relationship can also make a difference on how one feels at work and how effective a person is on the job. Okay, so that's the example of a theoretical framework. So the paradigm of that theoretical framework is shown in figure 1. So just look at it, okay? And based on the foregoing example, how was the theoretical framework formulated? An analysis of the example reveals that the theoretical framework can be presented by, number 1, specifying the theory used or to be used as basis of the study. Number 2, mentioning the proponents of the theory. Number 3, citing the main points emphasized in the theory. Number 4, supporting the researcher's exposition of the theory by ideas from other experts. Number 5, illustrating the theoretical framework by means of a paradigm or diagram. And number 6, ending up by reiterating the theoretical proposition of the study. After formulating the theoretical framework, the researcher has to develop the conceptual framework of his study. While the theoretical framework is the theory on which the study is based, the conceptual framework is the operationalization of this theory. Some researchers consider it as the direction of the study or the researcher's own position on the problem. It may be an adaptation of a model used in a previous study with modifications to suit the inquiry. It is therefore the researcher's model, patterned after previous models, that he has analyzed, leading to the creation of a new conceptual framework. Aside from showing the direction of the study through the conceptual framework, the researcher can be able to show relationships of the different constructs that he wants to investigate. A construct, according to Arboleda in the year 1991, is any clearly defined concept. In the research proposed on personality preferences as correlates to teachers' professional satisfaction, the conceptual framework was presented in the following manner, shown in figure 3. As depicted in figure 3, it can be seen that there are 3 sets of variables that shall serve as inputs to this study. These variables are as follows: profile of grade school teachers in terms of selected personal attributes, personality preferences of these teachers, and their professional satisfaction profile. In order to achieve the output of this study, that of better understanding these teachers as educators and individuals, the following processes shall be undertaken: analysis of the personal profile of the respondents, description and analysis of their personality preferences, description and analysis of their professional satisfaction profile, and correlational analysis between teachers' personality preferences and their professional satisfaction. Based on the example cited earlier, what procedures did the researcher follow in presenting the conceptual framework of the study? You will note that the following were done in the process. Number 1, citing the conceptual model or paradigm. Number 2, identifying the independent variables of the study. Number 3, mentioning the independent variable and its indicators and categories. Number 4, pointing out the intervening variables that can be explained the variances in the dependent and independent variables of the study. And number 5, showing the direction of the study. Okay, so that is all about our discussion for today's video. Thank you for watching this video. And please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be updated of our upcoming videos. Have a pleasant day, guys, and keep safe always.